Hi, I'm Elliot Trotter. Welcome to Sky Magazine's warm-up presented by Spin Ultimate. We're here to discuss the 2012 USA Ultimate Division III College Championships. I'm here with Robyn Fennig, who has been covering our Division III the entire season for the women's division. Robyn, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Elliot.
And Sarah McAra, our Wellesley Whiptails representative, who will be helping to cover the college championships with us. Sarah, thanks for joining us too.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So both of you will most likely be at the 2012 college championships, the D3 college championships out in Appleton, Wisconsin. Both of you have been following the season, have sort of specialties in the regions that you've been covering. But tell us a little bit about the season itself. What were some of the highlights? Robyn, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Elliot. I've followed mostly in the North Central and Great Lakes, though I did make a trip out to Virginia to check out some of the Atlantic Coast and New England teams. For the most part, my favorite going into the postseason is definitely Valparaiso. They've returned a good core of their roster, and they've really demonstrated that their team has a lot of depth, more so than a lot of the Division III teams that I've seen so far this season. And they have very patient players, and so I'm expecting them to go very far. We also are returning the reigning Division III college champions, the Carleton B Eclipse, and they bring back a good core of their team with a lot of big game experience, and they've shown signs of vast improvement throughout the season. So I expect those two teams to really be leading the field in Appleton.
Mm-hmm. Both of those teams were sticking high on the college, the power rankings that we had this season as well. I think Valpo topped the list for most of the year.
Yeah, and I guess another team too that I've been following closely is Claremont, the Green Shirts. I know Erica Bacon, we played club together a few years ago. She's a very talented player, and she does a lot of really great things and opens up the offense for the Green Shirts. And they've been doing extremely well. They won the Division II Suntex tournament down in Austin against some really top level Division I teams. So they're very impressive as well.
Awesome. And Sarah, tell me a bit about what you've been seeing this season as well.
Yeah, so I mostly know the Northeast region, but the standout one for me is definitely going to be Bowdoin. They're having an undefeated season. They've won most of their games by a margin of at least 10 points. So I think they're going to do pretty well at Nationals this year.
Mm-hmm. What about some of the standout players in your region? Who's been really performing for Bowdoin and some of the other teams?
Yeah, Bowdoin has a couple of really strong handlers that really make the team, I think, what it is this year. And the one, Stevie Aaron, one of the captains, just have really consistent jumps and great flicks that their team can catch down D. So I think some standout players from Bowdoin. And I know from our experience, Stonehill too has some great handlers working for them.
And Robyn, from the regions you've been following, who are some of the standout players there?
Yeah, from the South Central, Betsy York from Sherman State. She really is huge for them both on offense and defense. She's really great, especially against some zones. She's a really great popper. Also, Callie Perino from Carleton B. She's only a sophomore, but she's definitely a huge impact player for them. Out of the Great Lakes, we have a very talented Valpo team, but I think the best two players on Valpo to watch are Erica Wagner. She's a handler. She has got great hucks, but she's also very patient and can work it under against the zone. Ellen Gruspedi, I think I murdered her last name, but Ellen is a super speedy receiver for Valpo, and I've seen her make some ridiculous catches that I think are, ESPN worthy, and then
maybe
Carla
even Skyd worthy.
Yeah, Carla Eklund from Grinnell. She was one of the top scorers out of the D3 championships last year, and she returns for Grinnell, and she scores a lot of points for the Sticky Tongues. And I also mentioned Erica Bacon from Claremont, very standout player, multiple all-region nominee out of the Southwest, which is a very tough region overall for both D1 and D3.
Mm-hmm. Great. So moving on to the regional competitions and looking at some of the regional surprises, some of them got kind of messy and shook up some of the seeds. Robyn, what were some of the shakeups that you saw?
Well, it was really interesting to watch the North Central only getting 2 bids allocated originally, and then they earned a 3rd bid because other regions declined bids. So they have another team going. But just to see out of that 2nd bid, to see 3 very good teams battling for that last the bid initially. So seeing Grinnell, Drake, and St. Olaf trying to get that 2nd bid was very exciting. I was really hoping that Drake would be able to make it because I know that they've been working really, really hard on setting a program and really sustaining that in the future. So they're going to be losing some leadership next year, but to see that St. Olaf was able to get there again, it makes it, I think, very worthwhile because the North Central has a very, I think, a very good field of D3 teams that have been well established for quite some time.
And Sarah, is there anyone missing the show from what you've seen that you think should be there this year?
I don't know. At least in our regional, Bowdoin was definitely a standout team. Bowdoin, Stonehill, playing similar kind of games. I know at least for the Northwest region, PLU, they had a close game against Whitman, but they finally made it to the top to make it to nationals. So I guess that was a tough fight there.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I think is worth mentioning, Smith, who has been they've been performing very well all season. Not seeing them in Appleton will be a shock. I know that the big issue for them was half of their team was going to be at graduation. There's no way to make that role. And so I think that not having them at the D3 championships is a kind of a big detriment. I was also pulling for Sarah's team, out that they would put together a really good season this spring and have showed some really big signs of improvement.
Cool. Just a note on the PLU women as well. You know, they're a team that won this whole thing a couple of years ago, and then missed out on some rostering issues. I think a year after that. So it's exciting to see them back in it and being able to win one over Whitman to get another trip back.
Yeah.
So looking at the 2012 D3 championships in Appleton, Wisconsin, you know, that's a place that gets really hot during the summer, certainly in May. It gets really windy. I know a couple years ago it was an extremely windy championships. What are some expectations? Sarah, let's start with you.
Yeah, I definitely think Claremont will be coming out on top. I think Bowdoin, again, is going to put up a good fight. There might be some teams out there that can shut them down, especially if they're relying on their 2 handlers. If there are some other teams that can just play really great D the entire time, you know, with the wind, with the sun, everything. But they definitely have a chance. And I'm rooting for PLU. They've had a really great season. And I think we played them at nationals a couple years ago. A pretty tough team to beat. So looking forward to see them play.
Robyn?
Well, I guess our sectionals in Wisconsin have been in Appleton a few times. So having played at that site in spring, it's one of the windiest sites that I've played at, being in the Midwest. And I think that really plays to the strengths of Valparaiso, what I've seen from them all season. They have such a deep roster so that if those points go long, they always have a supply of fresh legs, and their zone offense is second to none, I think, compared to a lot of the teams that I've seen so far this season. Their handlers, they can throw all day. I saw them just annihilate Colorado at Midwest Throwdown when it was really, really windy on Saturday. It was very impressive. So I really think that their game, their strengths really play well in the weather that we're expecting. Though I know that Grinnell plays very, very, very strongly in the wind. Their handlers are very patient and they can just create looks. I haven't seen so much out of like Atlantic Coast teams in the wind. Of what I saw of Mary Washington, they played a pretty fast-paced offense, so I'm not really sure how that will fare at Appleton. So I guess we'll have to see.
So it sounds like some of your favorites are already out there. But let's take a look at semis and see if we could maybe nail down the top 4 teams, talk about who's going to be in the finals, and then restate those picks for who's going to be taking it home. So Sarah, who's in your semifinals?
Semifinals, I think I'm gonna go with Valpo is up there, PLU, and then Claremont and Bowdoin.
Okay.
I'm still going to stick with those.
I thought you might say something about Bowdoin.
Yeah.
And Robyn, what about your semis?
My semis, I would say Claremont, Carleton B, Bowdoin, and Valpo.
Okay. And then what are we seeing in the finals? Robyn?
I'm going for a Claremont-Valpo matchup. I was thinking earlier this season, I thought that Williams was going to be there. The fact that they're not making the trip and that their very tall, athletic receiver was out for most of the season changed my mind. But I'm thinking Claremont versus Valpo in finals.
And Sarah, do you agree with Robyn's assessment there?
Yeah, I could see Claremont Valpo or Claremont Bowdoin, something.
Yeah.
Some combination there.
What do you think's gonna make the difference for those few teams, those 5 teams that were mentioned here, that will allow them to succeed above the field? Sarah?
I think it has to do with what Robyn was saying with like the depth of the team. How many people they can rely on to run hard the entire time. Especially with the wind and all the having to play zone B and shutting that down. I think if you're relying on a few players, you might not make it too far. But at least Claremont and PLU definitely, I think, have some good depth to their teams that could help them out.
Robyn, you think is it depth that's going to allow these teams to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that depth definitely plays into it. It's something that once you get to nationals in either division, that it definitely matters. If you're relying on a few players on your team, or if you just have a smaller roster, that by the end of the tournament, you're going to be feeling that. I also think that offensive patience and skills definitely play into a game that's going to be really windy. So I think that teams who have good zone offense and very patient handlers will be succeeding in Appleton.
All right, let's hear those final picks. So who's taking home the gold? Sarah?
Oh, I might go with Claremont actually.
All right, Claremont. What are the thoughts behind that pick?
Well, they've had a really good season. I think they have more of a history of having a good, strong season. Whereas Bowdoin, who might be my next choice, is they're still developing, not all there. So I think Claremont has got some. They're just playing some clean ultimate out there. I think they can keep up.
And Robyn?
I'm going with Valpo.
Valpo.
They've been my favorite all season. I've seen them perform against some really good teams in some tough conditions. The days that they've struggled, it's been no wind, and the weather in Appleton plays to their strengths very well.
Okay. And do you see any standout players? Do either of you expect there to be any players that will really carry their teams to victory, or just to some excellent wins this tournament coming up? Robyn?
Yeah, I mean, I expect, like I said before, Betsy York from Truman State. She's a really clutch part of their offense. She touches the disc a lot, and she makes plays on both sides of the disc. And then Erica Wagner from Valpo, she's got a really level head, and she really leads the team both on and off the field. She keeps the sideline energy up, and I think her team really depends on her for good leadership.
And Sarah, do you have any players that you're excited to see compete, or any matchups between teams that you're looking forward to seeing?
I mean, I'm really interested to see how PLU does this year, especially since they did so well the last time they were there. I don't know many of their players, but it sounds like they've been having a really great season. So I'm kind of interested to see just how they do in general.
Cool. Robyn, any last words?
Yeah, I guess I've heard a lot of really good talk about Kelly Weeks and Julia Yu from Princeton. I've heard that they're a very good dynamic duo on the field, and that they're very difficult to shut down. Their chemistry is fantastic, and I'm really excited to see them play together in Appleton.
Awesome. Well, we've had our picks and thoughts from the experts for the 2012 Division III College Championships. Thanks again to Robyn Fennig and Sarah McAra. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Elliot.
And we will see both of you in Appleton.
Yep.
I'm Elliot Trotter here for Sky Magazine's warm-up presented by Spin Ultimate.